Everyone, I'm Dino Vidal, and welcome to tonight's Dino Vidal Show on SiriusXM Channel 127. It's Tuesday, March 30th. As always, I'm here to be your MBFF. You know, there's a lot of news, and some things get lost that I find really alarming, and they're issues that I've covered in the past, but even I was focused on issues that needed and demanded attention, like what was going on in Georgia, the GOP's new Jim Crow, and the Derek Chauvin on trial for murdering George Floyd. But in the last week, we've seen something very alarming. We've seen Donald Trump's media allies and GOP allies, and I'm not exaggerating, openly call for violence, openly call for a military coup to remove Donald Trump on national television, and openly defending fascism, which inherently is violent, and the idea that fascism is coming to America because the GOP needs to do it because the Democrats are allegedly fascist. And that was on Fox News, on Tucker Carlson's show. You know, we've learned a few lessons from the January 6th Donald Trump terrorist attack on our nation. And those lessons are violent imagery cannot be ignored. It must be countered. The other lesson is that anyone involved in that terrorist attack, including Trump himself, needs to be criminally prosecuted or it'll happen again. But look what's happening. We saw on Thursday, the Michigan State GOP chair, the chair of the Republican Party, a man elected by all the other Republican delegates in the state, said openly when asked about the two Republican members of Congress who had voted to impeach Donald Trump and hold him accountable for his terrorist attack, he asked, what do we do about him? And he said, assassination. And then he added, well, if nothing else, we can vote them out. Look, the idea of even a quip or a comment using the term assassination in our climate after January 6th is not just wrong, it's dangerous. It is, again, paving the way for another January 6th insurrection. Making it even worse, one of the members of Congress who was asked about Peter Meijer in Michigan, who he suggested assassination, had gone public 2 months ago that since he voted for Donald Trump's impeachment, he said death threats and how to buy body armor. The GOP chair doesn't care. He's a Trump loyalist, not an American loyalist, a Trump loyalist. That's what we're seeing right here. But that piece of garbage in the GOP in Michigan, Ron Weiser, wasn't done. Then he went on to talk about Governor Gretchen Whitmer and two other Democratic state elected officials who are women. He called them witches, and he said we have to get ready to burn them at the stake. Again, in this using sexism and violent imagery where there's no place for it, especially after Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, was a plot by pro-Trump activists to kill her and kidnap her. That's the GOP. He only apologized after 2 days of being screamed at to apologize. He didn't want to apologize. This is where the Republican Party is going. It's actually sad he apologized. I wish he would just triple down on it and said, no, we're the GOP. We're the party of violence. We will use violence to acquire and retain power. Be honest with us. Don't apologize. I wish people would not push these Republicans when they're showing us who they are. Just walk it back. That's not who the guy is. That's not who the GOP is. They are not a political party. They are a fascist movement. Any more doubts? On Newsmax, which is Trump's one of his favorite channels now, the host there, and yes, they are diamond and silk. I know people laugh them off, but don't forget they have over 1 million followers on Twitter, and they're very popular in the right-wing world. Well, on Newsmax, they literally called for a military coup to remove Joe Biden. Let me repeat that. On American television on Friday, Diamond and Silk literally called for the military to remove Joe Biden. And it was barely a blip. Like it doesn't matter. And then it gets worse. A few days before on Fox News with Tucker Klansman, also known as Tucker Carlson, he had a guest on, Jesse Kelly, a talk show host, who said that because the Republican people, like Trump said a few days ago, they're arresting all these Republicans for storming the Capitol, but not prosecuting Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Republicans are seeing this as unfair, and they're playing by the rules. And he would not be surprised, as he said, that I'll put the exact words, the right is going to pick a fascist within 10 to 20 years because they're not going to be the only ones on the outs. No, they already had a fascist in Donald Trump. Fascism is just simply the use of, at its essence, violence to retain or acquire power. That was the January 6th white supremacist terrorist attack. It was a quintessential fascist movement. But here you have in Tucker Carlson, yep, you're right. Tucker Carlson, we can dismiss him as a joke, but he's not. He has the highest ratings in all of cable news right now, of all the shows. He's the most watched. And on his show last week, he had a guest on and he agreed with that we're going to have to pick a fascist because there's two sets of rules, one for Democrats, one for Republicans. Anyone in Black Lives Matter or Antifa who's committed crimes, and they're not part of the Democratic Party, it's formalities, they are prosecuted if they're apprehended, and they should be if they commit a crime. There's no doubting it. The people who stormed our Capitol in an effort to stop the peaceful transfer of power are terrorists. They should be charged with the most severe penalties and go to jail for life if that's possible. But you have the right defending it. So in the last week alone, to sum up, we've seen the Republican state chair in Michigan call for assassination of Republicans not loyal to Donald Trump. We had another Trump loyalist on Newsmax call literally for a military coup to remove Joe Biden from power. And then days before that on Tucker Carlson's show, we had him and another guest doing their best to normalize the unthinkable in America, fascism. I've said this over and over. I would have never said it before January 6th. I wouldn't have said it after January 6th. The Republicans in one voice denounced Donald Trump's attack on our Capitol. Instead, out of 260 members who are Republicans in the Senate and the House, only 17 voted to condemn Donald Trump. Only 17. The rest, in my view, are complicit. They're endorsing it. The GOP is clearly no longer a political party. They're a fascist movement. I think we are getting to a point where we're going to have to address this in ways we didn't think about before. I don't mean violence in any way like that, but I mean, I'm the biggest advocate of freedom of expression. But should you be allowed to go on American airwaves and advocate for a military coup to remove the sitting president? Should be able to go on American airways and defend fascism, which inherently involves violence, to crush dissent in this nation? Should that be allowed? I think that's a question we have to have. And, the FCC, it's cable news, we'll have to see if they can regulate them or not. The Michigan GOP, he's just being who he is. That's up to the voters in Michigan to continue to elect Democrats. They are not letting this GOP get more power. But we'll talk about this more on my show today. It is a alarming development where we are as a nation. And don't lose sight of this. I could bring this up every day. I don't. We have other issues. But this, again, after this last week's news, it is too alarming. It is too dangerous. You can't look away. I despise Trump too. I don't want to talk about Trump. But his allies in there are paving the way for Trump or another mini Trump to be a fascist, to use violence, to crush our dissent. And I'm not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm speaking from lessons that history has taught us. So we'll talk about that more on my show tonight from 6 to 9 p.m. on Sirius XM channel 127. As I say every night, if you don't subscribe to Sirius XM, go to the website. There are free trials. Check it out. Call my show. Be a part of our family. We've got a lot of work to do. If you want progress, stay active. Thanks for tuning into the preview of tonight's Dino Bidala Show.